Well, hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm Philanthropone and I'm back with another top 3 video here, this time for the months of September and October of 2018. There were some big VR games that came out during this time period and I'm very happy with my picks, so without further ado, here are my top 3 favorite HTC Vive games to release in September and October of 2018. Number 3, Witching Tower. This game made the cut last minute for this video as it just recently launched at the very end of October. I did a video on a very unfinished version of the game back in July, and I'm glad to report that most, not all, but most of the issues that I experienced in that video have been resolved in the full launch. Witching Tower is a puzzle adventure game set in a dark fantasy world, as the devs put it, and makes for quite an awesome experience. It draws comparisons to games like The Gallery and Form, two of my favorites, but what sets it apart from them is that there is combat in this game. More on combat in a second. As for puzzles, the puzzles in the game are creative and not overly difficult, which is just the way I like them in a VR game, as I was able to progress through the game without mind-bending puzzles, breaking the flow of the gameplay and story. Now I know I'm supposed to be praising this game as it being in my top 3, but I'm going to derail from my normal method in making these videos and critique it a little bit. First of all, I think the game could have possibly been better if the developers ditched combat altogether, especially the melee combat, because melee combat in most VR games usually stinks, and if there's any one thing that breaks immersion in Witching Tower, it's the melee combat, where it feels more like you're swatting flies than using an actual sword. So in my opinion, the melee combat takes away from an otherwise very polished VR game. Furthermore, the bow mechanics aren't very impressive either, as I have to readjust my wrist in an uncomfortable position just to be able to shoot straight. And that's one of the reasons why I loved games like The Gallery and Form and Twilight Path, because they didn't need combat to be great games. Those games are great because they were super immersive, had impressively designed puzzles, had gorgeous visuals, and just felt more adventure-like when comparing it to Witching Tower, since combat is not the focus in those games. But with all of that said, if you like puzzle adventure games, I can still recommend checking it out, and the game is getting good reviews, so don't take my word for it as far as what I just said. Try the game out yourself and see if you like it. The game currently goes for $19.99 on Steam. Number 2, Creed Rise to Glory. As some of you may know, I am a fight fan in real life, so it only makes sense that a boxing game made by one of my favorite VR developers, that being Survios, is on the list. There are 3 primary gameplay modes in Creed Rise to Glory, and they are Campaign, Free Play, and PvP. One of the things that stands out most when comparing Creed to other boxing VR games is that this is the first boxing game with player versus player matches. And I have to say, performance was surprisingly good, when you're not breaking stuff, that is.
Did you hit something?
Yeah, I just broke a light. Oh. The campaign involves doing training exercises, some of which are quite tiring, in order to rank up and get stronger, where in free play you're free to do what you want and play a quick match. One important thing to note about the game is that this is more of an arcade-like boxing game, so if you're looking for a simulator approach, then there are other boxing games out there, such as the thrill of the fight. But Creed Rise to Glory is a lot of fun thanks to Survios' Phantom Melee technology, as they call it, where they say that it utilizes responsive control and virtual stamina to mimic the real-life effects of punching and being hit in the ring. Some of the elements of gameplay are pretty cool. If you get hit too many times, you can become staggered, and once that happens, you leave your body and have to do a kind of mini-game to continue fighting. I also really like the idea they came up with for when you get knocked down. In other VR boxing games, there have been many debates on what should happen once a player gets knocked down, because up until that point, you were burning real stamina when throwing punches. So Survios came up with a method to burn real stamina in an attempt to recover from a knockdown. Once you're knocked down, you're placed at a certain distance away from the ring, and you have to sprint back as quickly as possible before the count gets to 10. And each time you get knocked down will place you further and further away from the ring, which means one has to exert more and more energy in order to make it back to the ring in time. If you don't make it back in time, then you lose by knockout. So I thought that was a really cool idea. The game currently goes for $29.99 on Steam. And number 1, Twilight Path. Twilight Path is the spiritual successor to the critically acclaimed VR game Form, brought to you by Charm Games. It has a similar playstyle to Form, but on a much grander scale. The game world is bigger and you interact with several characters throughout your journey. Unlike Form, where you're mainly working with close-up objects, Twilight Path gives you the ability to interact and control objects at great distances, which really allows for grander and more creative puzzles in my opinion. The sound design and effects are top-notch just like Form, and all of the awesome objects and structures that move around in a mechanical fashion are still there. As far as puzzle difficulty goes, I would say that they're about on par with Form, and you're not left scratching your head for too long. The game's characters are also fun to watch and listen to as they argue and make lighthearted jokes throughout the journey. Like Form, Twilight Path is about the experience. If you're looking for immersion, then it can't get any better than a game like Twilight Path. However, if you're looking for a more challenging puzzle-solving experience, then you may be left disappointed. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, having difficult puzzles, in my opinion, detracts from a VR game's level of immersion when you're left halting your progress for 10 plus minutes straight while you try and figure out a mind-bending puzzle. The game currently sits at an 84% positive review average on Steam, which is considerably lower than Form's average, where most negative reviews for Twilight Path seem to criticize the game's length, where some people are claiming to have finished the game in just 45 minutes to an hour. However, the average playtime is probably something more like 1.5 to 2 hours. I will admit it is painful when a game this good ends so quickly because you're left craving for more, and I definitely will not give any spoilers, but I will say that the door for a possible sequel to Twilight Path was left wide open. The game currently goes for $14.99 on Steam. And there you have it, guys. Those are my picks for the top 3 Vive games to release in September and October of 2018. As always, guys, I'd appreciate it if you like the video and let me know in the comments what you think, especially about Twilight Path if you've played it. Also, if you're a new subscriber, I'd like to say welcome, and just to let you know that I do these top 3 videos every 2 months to give my picks for the best Vive games to release during that given time period. Also, don't forget to hit that bell notification icon on my channel page so you don't miss any new uploads. So that's all for this one. Thank you once again. Until next time, peace.